Hi there, this is Dave and welcome to the 10 best JRPGs that you've probably never played, Part 4. If you've missed the previous parts, be sure to check the video description for the links. There are so many great games out there that it's pretty easy for a few to slip between the cracks, especially for the younger folks or people who may have only gotten into JRPGs much later on in life. So I'm here to help you out by showing you some really cool games that you may have missed over the years. Number 10. Final Fantasy Dimensions, released for mobile platforms. This was the very first game that got me to try mobile RPGs. Final Fantasy V is one of my favorites in the entire series, and this one, being essentially Final Fantasy V 2, continues the structure and themes of 5, but with a different set of characters and some new and returning classic job classes. It utilizes a chapter system, where you control different party members during different chapters, forcing you to change jobs to meet their circumstances. The story's well written, funny, and doesn't take itself too seriously, and it has an SNES-style graphics, which are by far my favorite graphical style. As a mobile game though, grinding can be required at times, but I will still stand by and say that it is the best traditional Final Fantasy that nobody has really played. Number 9. Defenders of Oasis, released for the Sega Game Gear. I never had a Game Gear growing up, so I had to play this little gem through emulation whenever I was in college, but I am really glad that I did. Not many games take place in ancient Arabia, let alone JRPGs, and if they're featured at all, it's normally just some sort of trope town or pyramid dungeon. But this one goes the extra mile and answers the question of, what would Dragon Quest look like if it was set in Arabia? With 4 party members, including a magical genie, tons of dungeons, and bright graphics, it's really not that bad. And while you can't come into a Game Gear experience expecting like a masterpiece, it is a fun little piece of history that's really interesting and worth the playthrough on a rainy day. Number 8. Thousand Arms, released for the PlayStation. Whenever I first heard about this game, I didn't think that I would like it since I heard that it's much more of a dating sim than a traditional RPG, but that's not really the case at all. I think that the magazines were just trying to hype up that feature to sell to some horny teenage boys. Not only is this definitely one of the best traditional RPGs on the system, but it's also just nonsensical and ridiculous. There are dates, and they do play out differently, oftentimes hysterically, depending on what options that you choose, and it fully embraces its absurdity. The cartoony character designs are well done, the voice acting's hysterical, and all the unique locations that you visit gives it an otherworldly charm. The one-on-one battles are simplistic and charming in their own right, especially because every single monster is lovingly designed. Number 7. Guardians Crusade, released for the PlayStation. I remember being super hyped for this after reading multiple magazine articles and reviews whenever I was on my lunch break in the Publix break room whenever it first came out. While all the reviewers were like, gross, this is a stupid kiddie game, I was like, hell yeah, this is a great, cute JRPG. I guess I don't really understand people who write off games as juvenile just because it has a certain graphical style. A good game is a good game no matter what it looks like. And if you're looking for a game with a similar vibe to something like Earthbound, look no further. This is a completely seamless world map, it's all on the same scale, and it is a breath of fresh air. Yeah, combat can be a little bit basic since you really only have control of the knight and the baby, but there's added mechanics like the pet system and the living toys. Please, don't judge a game by its cover. Number 6. Super Adventure Island 2, released for the SNES. If your only experience with the series was the very first one on the NES, this is a whole other beast. You have an explorable world map with random battles akin to something like Zelda 2, elemental-themed armors and weapons, magic spells, and non-linear gameplay. Not just in the level design, but insofar as your choice of which levels to go to first. This game caught me by surprise because I was expecting something similar to the ones that I played on the NES, but instead it is a complete genre flip. But while Zelda 2's genre flip was a flop, this is decidedly not. I just wish that they continued the series onto systems beyond the SNES and in this same vein, because this was amazing. Number 5, Treasure Hunter G, released for the SNES. This was released extremely late in the SNES's life cycle, and it's a collaboration between Rare and Square, and it utilizes the hardware to best advantage. It's a tactical RPG that follows the adventures of two brothers, Red and Blue, who might seem familiar from Saga Frontier, and their story is a little bit wacky, involving a missing father, resurrecting dinosaurs, and dancing monkeys, but the gameplay is super fun and the graphics are out of this world. It looks like a PSX or an N64 game. You can tell that painstaking detail went into the world, and you can interact with pretty much every little thing in the environment. From barrels to flowers to beehives, you can use anything in your arsenal to win the strategy battles before you. This is an odd mix of traditional JRPG with like a world map, towns and dungeons to explore, but having all the battles be large-scale brawls, kind of like Shining Force. Number 4, Battle Chasers Night War, released for multiple systems. This is a JRPG at heart, despite having a Western art style and being developed by a Western studio. And whenever I say Western, I mean those really old 1950s comic book styles. It's just so interesting. It's almost as if the designers crossed like Dick Tracy with Final Fantasy, then splashed in a bit of Diablo for good measure. It's basically based upon the Battle Chasers comic book series, which I've never heard of before playing this game, so it's nice to know that you really don't need knowledge of the source material to enjoy this little romp. There are a few things that bothered me though. Dungeons are randomly generated, and there is a crafting system. But if you can get past that, you'll have a fun time, and it shouldn't take any longer than about 25 hours for the main campaign. Number 3, Nexomon Extinction, released for multiple systems. This is up there with Digimon and Monster Sanctuary as one of the best non-Pokemon Pokemon games out there, with beautiful hand-drawn art, tons of great creatures, and a non-linear campaign. Looking like it came straight off the Game Boy Advance, this is the second game in the series with tons of quality of life improvements and taking place in a post-apocalyptic world, though thankfully this is no SMT. It's all lighthearted, jaunty, and fresh. There are 9 families of Nexomon, and each can level up to learn 4 attacks, which drains various amounts of stamina upon use. If you've ever wanted to play a Pokemon type of game, but with an open world environment and fighting against trainers that grow in strength with you, this is the game for you. Number 2, Metalmax Zeno, released for the PC and PS4. Well, the Metalmax series is actually one of the longest running in Japan, first beginning back on the SNES. There's only been 2 releases here in the West, Metal Saga for the PS2, and much more recently, this. And while Metal Saga was completely open world, Zeno is much more linear, which I can appreciate. Like Final Fantasy, all the games share similar themes, but beyond that, they're not really connected in any sort of tangible way. You explore the post-apocalyptic wasteland in your tank, upgrading it and fighting monsters, while also exploring ruins and gathering party members. Excitingly, there's actually been a sequel announced too, so be sure to check that out whenever it comes. And finally, number 1, Somabringer, released for the Nintendo DS. Here we have Monolith Soft's first games, with one of the best soundtracks on the DS, and thankfully, no card-based battling system. It was only released in Japan, but there's an excellent translation patch available. It really does remind me of kind of like a beta version of Xenoblade Chronicles crossed over with something like Secret of Mana, which is a recipe for success if I ever saw one, because I love both of those games. You play as a member of the military who goes around the world fighting off attacking aliens and restoring the flow of soma, or really electricity, to the people of the world. There's lots of replay value since you can choose one of 6 heroes at the start, and there's an evolved class system to play around with. It is just a joy. I cannot believe this was not released here. Well, that's it for the top 10 best JRPGs that you've probably never played, part 4. Let me know if you think that there's any that I might have missed, and maybe I'll include them in a part 5, because this is a really fun series that I would love to continue, and if you like this video and what I do here on the channel, please consider supporting me over on Patreon for exclusive videos and early access to my content, heading on over to Twitch for some streaming fun, or coming on over to my Discord to chat and hang out. The links to them all can be found in the video description. This has been David. If you like this, please like, comment, and subscribe, and have a good day.